everybody. Welcome back to the Insider's Lounge. Today we have another episode with Charles. Charles, thanks for coming on, and feel free to give a quick introduction about yourself.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Chad. I'm happy to be on this new podcast. I've been watching your episodes and it's really cool. So I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm Charles. I'm 25 years old and I'm currently a soccer coach at IMG Academy. And my journey with soccer has been an interesting one. That's why I'm excited to share my story, because it's unordinary, but I think it can add value to a lot of guys. I was born in Mexico. I grew up there until I was 10 years old. I was born in Mexico City, but then I moved to a small city called Aguascalientes when I was like 6 months old. And soccer was a part of my life, like very strong part of my life in my childhood. Like the thing was going to elementary school with a different team's jersey every single day. So it was, and then recess was like what I looked forward to every day, because we would just have these what they call cascaritas, which is like little scrimmages in the yard, and it was amazing. So that's how I fell in love with the sport, and I joined a competitive environment in a club called Necaxa in their youth academy.
Yeah.
And I played there until I was 10 years old. And then my dad, luckily having an American passport, said that we should move to the United States to live. So I moved here when I was 10, and it was cool. It was easy to transition because the U.S. There's not too much culture shock between the U.S. and Mexico. And I moved to Clearwater because they like Florida, they like the beach. So I played for Clearwater Chargers from 10 until I was 13 years old. And then we played against IMG Academy. And at IMG, my dad was like, this is a place for you, man. Let's do it. Anything it takes to get you in there. So I went to there for high school, played, throughout the teams, use 15, U16, U17, U18, and then played Division II at Eckerd College, just up right there in St. Pete, up the road. Had a good few years there, and then my soccer career. We will get more into this, but my soccer career didn't progress from there. And the pandemic hit when I graduated. I did some soul searching and of what I wanted to do with my life, and I decided to stick with the sport. And even though the playing days were over, how could I stick with it? And so I reached back out to my alma mater, IMG, and got an assistant coaching position there. And now I am a head coach for the U13 MLS boys over there.
You nailed that. That was one of the best summaries we've had on the show. That was good. But yeah, let's start right at that kind of what we were talking about earlier, how you didn't quite make that next jump into whether it was the pro level or kind of higher up in college. What was let's go more into your playing days as a young youth player, and then kind of building up into the college step, and then kind of that gap where you didn't have a chance to make it, and you kind of learned to adapt and go back into coaching. So first of all, let's go into your playing career. What was first like the transition, like going from Mexico to the States, like playing wise? And then kind of your first days at IMG. What can you touch on, like just some points there?
Yeah, of course. To be honest, I think that like 10 to 13 age range is really when, and some people may disagree with me on this, but that's when I really think kids that are going to go pro get it. Like that's the definitive age of that separates players that are going to be good and players that are going to be like pro, like really, really good. And that's the age where I transitioned from Mexico to the United States. And, from that transition, I was excited about being in the US. So I tried different sports. I tried American football. I tried baseball. I tried soccer. And like I did that for a year or two. I didn't focus only on soccer. And I think that was, one thing that if I wanted to go pro, I should have focused more on soccer then, but I was just a kid, so I chose soccer and then try to find the best environment to play college or pro, and that was IMG. And at IMG, there was, obviously there's really, really talented players. So I was always like kind of middle of the pack. And I back in the day, there used to be the development academy with the U16, a U18 age group. And so what would happen was, for example, I'm the 97. So my U15 year, the U16 Development Academy team would be 96. So I would get left out of that because I wasn't like a super, super outstanding 97. I was late born, almost a 98. Therefore, I would play on the premier team, on the U15 premier team, not the DA team. And then next year was 97. I would make the DA team. The year after that, I would get left back out because the U18 DA team
Yeah,
was
it
96. So
switches again.
I kept going like up and down, up and down, up and down. And so there, like I said, I was a kind of middle of the pack player. And, once I reached my U18 developed an academy year, I just started reaching out to a bunch of schools. I played as a right back. And, one thing I noticed is that like schools go out for difference makers with like strikers, midfielders, right back and left back is
Yeah, it's
usually
kind of one of those.
overlooked, and like they'll turn a midfielder into an outside back rather than recruit one. So I ended up going Division 2. That's the best offer to be on a team that I got, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the school that I went to. The conference was good, but if we're really getting into the main drive and passion behind soccer and going pro, that's college is where everything changed because life happens, and I was a young kid. IMG is very sport intensive, and once I went to college, I started discovering things that I wasn't exposed to at IMG, like social life and in all honesty, partying and
Yeah,
just like girls and things like that. And my focus, soccer became like my fourth or fifth priority in college. And in order, I mean, if you have a high aspirations for the game, there's no way that could happen.
right.
So I finished my college career, decently with playing time and things like that. But the pro game wasn't in reach after me not dedicating the time and effort that it takes to go pro.
Right. And then now, kind of looking back, now that you're a coach, do you think at that kind of 10 to 13 age, let's say you either stayed in Mexico or you were already in the States and you didn't have that kind of gap of playing time and kind of the mix of moving and everything, do you think you could have taken a route where you potentially could have gone pro? Like, do you think you had the mentality back then to go pro, or do you think you would have ended up similar to where your mindset's more like behind the game in coaching, analytics, things like that?
No, I think I could have. I think if I stayed I'm happy we moved to the US. My life has been great here.
Right.
But if I stayed in Mexico and the pro academy that I was in, they did a great job developing players, and all my skill and what I was good at came from that formative period. So I think going into what is called the youth academies of the Liga MX and then their leagues, I that it's kind of a cutthroat environment, but that club I trusted to develop me well. So maybe in an alternative story it could have
Right.
happened, but it's just it didn't. That wasn't the way it went.
And then comparing the levels, like from that academy to Clearwater, like where you were playing before IMG, what were the like differences? I know it's different age groups, so it's kind of hard to compare, but I think you can get an idea of the levels. What were the different levels like? Were they
Here's
like
another thing that
comparable? Yeah.
no. And then this is a good conversation to have, because in Mexico it's very street and technical, like very similar to South America, like Brazil and Argentina, where players are more like they're scrappy, but it's very technical and pass and move, and that's what's praised in the game. Individual skill, quick combinations. In the 2010s to like 2013, 2015, 2016. Um, I think the US right now is going more that way, but back then it was
Yeah,
all about physicality. It was all about physicality, how fast you can run, how strong you are, like, and that's what the youth soccer game was all about back then. And me being late born in my year and a smaller technical player, um, it was an adjustment for me to make here in the US. And then the coaches coached a different way. They looked for different things, and um, those weren't my attributes. And I think that was a piece for the when I grew older and I was looking at the college piece. That's also what college coaches
right.
look for. So the way they develop players in Mexico is different in the U.S. and no way is right or wrong, but the way I was developed did not fit the U.S. style. So
Yeah, the classic D1 athlete is someone that's just super muscular,
that's it.
strong, explosive, and then that can kind of transfer to any sport. But that's the reality of the way they build athletes now. When you
Yeah,
were in college, you took international business, I think, right? That was what you got your degree
yeah,
in. Um,
that's it.
Now that you're kind of in the game working as a coach, do you find that degree useful in like a day-to-day setting? Especially like I know you're traveling with the teams, you're kind of even as a coach, you're almost an entrepreneurial mindset still with the way you run a team. Do you find that useful now, or is it something that's you kind of just finished and it doesn't really help?
I do find it useful. And one thing, for example, international business touches a lot on culture, and I literally took a course called Cultural Environment of International Business, and it teaches you how different the business culture is in Japan than in the US,
Mm,
or in France and in the US, and it teaches you the minds um, of people of different countries. So, IMG being the international environment that it is, whether it be my boss who's from Scotland, or a coach that's from Peru, or a student that's from Argentina, like that sometimes that does come to my mind, where like, okay, well, these type of people are very direct, so don't take it personal. They just
yeah.
business. These type of these parents that are from Venezuela, they don't like direct. They want to make conversation, and you have to ask them how they're doing before you ask for something. So
Mhm.
it does help. And that's, I think, one of the main points that I have really really kept with me from that degree.
Yeah, I think at IMG, I didn't even think of that when I was asking that, but at IMG especially, you have so many. Like, do you know the stat of like how many different nations there are in IMG or no?
Yeah, it's a I mean, I don't know the exact stat. They
Yeah, but
haven't
it's got
released
to
that, but
be
it's at least 30 different countries
wow.
within the program. It's crazy. People the most people that I see are from South America, and then obviously from the US, and then there's a lot of people from the Middle East, like Saudi
Mm.
Arabia, or so it's a wide range. And there's a lot of people from East Asia, like Japan, Taiwan, things like that. So it's cool to see. It's a cool mix.
Yeah, and even for the players and students as well, I think you get such a wide variety of like the culture just in terms of playing, but also just lifestyle as well. It must be cool to be a student there as well.
Yeah, and the coaching staff is also very diverse. Like Argentina, Italy, the Peru. We've got Scotland, England, Mexico, Spain. So it's a
Wow.
melting pot in there as well. Yeah.
Okay, while we're on the kind of educational side of things, so you ended up doing, I believe you have your C and D coaching licenses, right?
Yes, I just finished
How
my C. Yeah.
how has that journey kind of been, and how's that process? How's that like kind of the process of getting those?
So it's actually grueling. It's
Mm.
the U.S. soccer is taking it serious, and in my opinion, they're doing it right. It you know it it's almost like taking a master's degree, and I'm halfway through it, because there's a lot of requirements that go into these licenses, a lot of hours that you have to put into them, and you have to record, you have to show what that you're applying the learning material. So these licenses have made me a better coach. I strongly believe that. And they've shaped the way I treat players. They shaped the way I coach, the way I design sessions. You know, sometimes at the beginning, I'm like, how is this going to help me? And as a lot of coaches probably think, but by the end of the course, like the instructors do a great job of really tying everything together, and it, I have nothing but good things to say about the licensing process, to be honest.
Hmm. And then for the B, do you have plans on taking that, or how does that work? Or is there like,
Yeah,
because I
no,
know there's
I
certain like
definitely will.
requirements, right?
Yeah, so for the B, so the higher the license goes, the more the harder it is to get in. DNC is pretty accessible for everybody, but as the
Hmm.
B goes on, you need to prove your experience. You need to have at least 3 years of coaching experience. You have to hold your C for at least a year. So I've held mine for 4 months. But as soon as I reach a year, I'm going to apply. You have to
Hmm.
have letters of recommendation, um, prove your playing experience, and all. So it's not everybody that applies gets in. So it's you have to button up your application. So it's a the instructors are like, this guy needs to be in because he's serious. So
Hmm.
yeah.
No, that's cool. And then we were kind of talking about kind of the international aspect of IMG and your degree. I think it says on your LinkedIn you can speak 4 languages. So you got English, Spanish, or is it Italian and French?
Yeah, I mean, speak like I'm not fluent.
Right, right,
I
right.
couldn't like hold a business conversation in Italian or French, but yeah, I can go there and defend myself. And one of the ways that it's helped me is it's not necessarily in the in a super business way, or like getting me somewhere, but it's in the connections with people. So if I only spoke English, I would have only access to English speaking people and English books, English knowledge to be had.
Hmm.
With these 4 languages, for example, I found a French website that provides a lot of coaching education that I can actually read
Oh
and
wow.
get ideas of exercises for or sessions. I had a French colleague that is now the U17 Colorado Rapids head coach, and I was able to build a rapport with them and like practicing my French with them. So
Yeah.
so that human connection as well. When you speak other languages, people from those countries or those cultures, they say he's trying. So they respect you more. So I think that's the ways that it's helped me. Yeah.
And with your players as well, like do you have a lot of players that don't necessarily speak English as their first language? Like I'm sure there's quite a few then on your team.
Yeah, I have a lot of Spanish speaking players, and
Hmm.
um, and I have actually a French Canadian player, and
Oh,
he didn't understand a lot, and so I explained the team tactics in French, and now like that ensures that he understands. So it helps with my players as well, and also to build a connection with them. Build as a coach, building a connection with players is extremely important, and speaking their language with them is the first way to start. So
right. Yeah, we had I had Jay Bindi on. He's the assistant coach at Valor in the CPL. And one of his mentors when he was kind of first getting into coaching said that like in order to be a head coach, you have to know at least 3 languages. Like it's just so key in terms of coaching and understanding people. And I think even outside of the like coaching world, just business wise, like knowing more than 1 language, like getting you into rooms where, like you said, or just reading material that might not be accessible in English. Even knowing if you just know 1 or 2 lines or phrases that you can say, I think you open up like a different mentality in people. Like if someone were to speak English to me and just say, and I know it's not their first language, like I'll already be that much more willing to speak with them just because they've at least tried, like you said.
exactly, no, yeah, that's it, man. That's it.
And
Look at
then,
Jose
oh
Mourinho.
yeah.
Jose Mourinho holds interviews in like
Yeah,
5 different languages, man. So yeah,
there's so many. I think so many of those coaches. Once you've really been around, like I think you start to learn, and you can. Yeah, you're basically just a walking. I forget what I called it with Jay, like a walking language dictionary or something.
yeah, man.
Um,
Yeah,
but I was looking. So obviously, yeah. While I was doing some research, you I called it. You were the self-proclaimed soccer and analytics soccer analytics and tactics enthusiast on your LinkedIn, and that's obviously how we first started conversating, was over your posts on LinkedIn. Where did you kind of get that side of things? Because I know, like, growing up, I'm kind of similar, and even people that are really devoted to soccer sometimes don't really like that side of things. They just like watching soccer, whatever. I think it takes a real like specific mind to enjoy the kind of the analytics and stuff behind the game. When did that start? And yeah, do you have some points on that?
Yeah, man. So that's it's cool that you bring that up, because that's really what opened my mind. So when you're a soccer player, when you're a
Mm.
player, you think of the game differently. You think of the game with you in it. But when you become a coach, or someone who's not who influences the team but not on the field, like when I was first a new coach, I saw all this different side that was, the strategy side. Like, for example, dropping your nine into the midfield to create numerical superiority, things like that. Like, you as a player sometimes get instructed to do that, but you're really thinking, okay, when I get the ball, what do I do here? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, as a coach, you think of every move you make almost like a chess match. Like, you move the nine in there, it creates this, it creates that. And so I started reading a lot about like different soccer tactics and what it does to opponents, and kind of like that strategic side of it. And it sparked my interest so much, and it really got me excited about being a coach and experimenting, and from there, adding the right pieces for what you want. And so I was like, if I was literally, it all started with, if I was a pro coach and I was in charge, or a general manager, football director for a pro team, how would I build my team? Like, I like my team to play a certain way. So what players have the highest passing accuracy in Europe? And then I went on this website called FBref that has all the
Yeah, I think I
data
saw it.
for. So FBref has all the data for professional players, and I was like, wow, these players are killing it here. Who
Mm.
under 22 years old is, has the highest passing completion in top 5 leagues of Europe? And then I just that went down that rabbit hole with different categories, different ideas. The players that create the most chances, the players that, uh, have the highest defenders, that have the highest tackling rate from the times they're challenged. And just going down the rabbit hole, I noticed how much it can impact recruitment, and correlating it to their market value. If you find two guys that have a really, crazy stat, but for example, one of them's English and everybody knows him, and the other guy plays
Yeah.
in in the Chile, or he's Chilean and plays in the Portuguese league or something. You might find some value in that Chilean player that plays in the Portuguese league over the English guy that everybody's talking about,
Mm.
and you might pay 5 million for the Chilean guy, and you have to pay 60 million for the English guy,
Yeah.
just because popularity, trends, things like that. So that's kind of about how I got into it.
No, it's good, and like you said, it helps you kind of learn on the coaching side, as well as it's just a fun hobby. Like me, I'll find
That's it.
myself looking at random graphs, probably yours, of just and reading through them because I find it so fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's a hobby. I'm open to having it as a profession in the future, but
Mm.
it just started as a hobby, and our profession's so grueling that I don't have enough time to dedicate
Yeah,
full time
that's
to
it.
it. But it's cool, man. And I think, for example, a club that does it really well is Brighton. They pull
Mm.
they have found so much value in players, and have sold them for so much. So that part of the game is only going to grow more and more and more, and more business savvy decisions are going to be made, and soccer might actually turn into a profitable business for some people, because historically it hasn't been a money making
Yeah,
thing. It's just a hobby for rich people
and
owning clubs and things like that.
I think the American side of things is really bringing that into light. Like, I think you're bringing in the analytics from NFL, from NBA, from MLB, all the American leagues, and they're bringing it into soccer now. And then you can see like Todd Bowley at Chelsea now, he's starting to bring in, like, I think they hired 10 analytics guys when he first came in, like within his first few weeks. All American guys. Some of them didn't even have a background in soccer. It's just purely analytics and finding ways to kind of find those secretive players that teams like Brighton find, and then you turn them into a really good profit that can end up changing a whole club's direction. Like Brighton a few years ago really was just a mid-table team, not really doing much. Now they tied Liverpool today. They're obviously in the European side of things. Like it's a really, really impressive turnaround.
No, it is, and also, it's important to mention, though, always that there's two sides, and some people are diehard on the other side that say soccer is, all about feeling and all
Mm-hmm.
about, the eye test and really, seeing if that player has that the things that you can't measure, that just has a feel for the ball. But I think there's a fine balance, and analytics is a very important starting point, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking for players. Like, let's take the most basic example: goals per game, right? If a guy is scoring a bunch of goals per game in the Dutch league, maybe the Dutch league is not as physical as the Premier League. So is he going to be as successful? Obviously you want to take a look at him because he's scoring, and you want to see what attributes he has that are helping him score goals. But does it fit with your style? Does it fit with the players you have? Does it fit with the coach? Is he Japanese, doesn't speak a word of English when your entire locker room is from Ghana? Like, is it going to fit? Like,
Yeah.
that. I always like to mention that analytics is not everything, and some clubs have gone gung ho all analytics. Like this club in Denmark called Midtjylland, they
Mm-hmm.
they literally based their decisions only on analytics. And that, but in my opinion, you have to just use it as a starting point and then take other factors into it.
Yeah, I had a conversation about this with Florian. He'll be on the podcast in a few weeks. He was a scout at Bayern, and while he was there, he would use the analytics. This was probably like early 2010s. And there was like analytics really just wasn't a thing. Like even now, they're still kind of getting into that side of things. But he would use it as okay, we're looking for a left back. These are the main stats we're looking at. They would kind of go through and be like, okay, these are 10 players based on these stats. Now let's do the eye test. And I think then once you're scouting and visually scouting players, then you can see, okay, this one will fit, this one won't, etc. Like you said, based on their profile.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's this recipe for success right there, man. Like not relying too much, but using it to your advantage.
Yeah. And so we were kind of speaking on IMG just before. In case people don't know about it, can you kind of give like a quick summary of what the academy is about? Not even just the soccer side, but kind of the whole thing, and then we'll kind of get into some questions about it.
Yeah, of course. So IMG started as a tennis academy. This guy who, rest in peace, his name is Nick Bollettieri. He started as a tennis academy. He produced legendary players like Andre Agassi and Maria Sharapova.
Oh, wow.
Started training over there with him, and the list goes on. There's a current guy named Michael Moe who was just did really well in the U.S. Open. And he, so the list goes on and on and on for Nick. And he was doing things so well over there that, he got involved with some business partners, and they said, this is a great setup. Let's go into more sports. And just this piece of land in Bradenton started offering the same, training curriculum of balancing school and sport, just like Nick was with tennis in his Bollettieri Tennis Academy. And it started expanding, and I can't tell you the year exactly, but for example, when I went there in 2013, they had 8 sports, and it's really an intensive sports oriented academic environment where players or athletes are given housing, food, school, and sport, all tailored to success, and a year-round training program and it's all inclusive. Like literally everything is there, and you can walk to everything. And um, they joined the highest leagues and in every sport, and joined the highest competitions. So it's really like an elite student athlete environment for high school and middle school aged uh, play athletes to join and go and develop there.
And then I think the way I got introduced to it was MLS was having some of their teams were having preseason at IMG. And then Hertha Berlin, that was when I first went. Hertha Berlin had their preseason there as well. So I think on top of being an athlete, a student athlete there, you're also getting access to the national teams coming to train at the facilities you play on a day-to-day basis, which is like just crazy to me. I think that's every kid's dream.
Yeah, no, that's the business model they nailed really, because first of all, it's in Florida. There's warm weather year round,
Mm-hmm.
and the facilities they really made it a massive investment in the facilities, to the point where it's ideal for a pro team or a national team to come and sleep, eat, and train at a world class, state of the art facility. So it's extremely attractive, and it's a great business model for IMG, and that's why it's had so much success and so much interest from pro teams, and just athletes, individual athletes that go there to do their rehab
Mm-hmm.
for an injury or their preseason training. And I wouldn't be surprised if, for example, a team uses it for the 2020 pre-World Cup training and base themselves there, because that's just the environment it provides.
Yeah, I spent I think it was 5 months in Europe. I went to a ton of training facilities, ton of stadiums, and there was very few I would say that were better than IMG. I think because it's so elite. Like I think your top five, even in your top five leagues, I think only your elite like Champions League level teams had facilities equal to or better than IMG. But I think really anything kind of below that level, IMG is much better, and it's impressive, especially as an American. Obviously, they're multi-sport and everything, but even just looking at the soccer side of things, like you have what 20 fields or something, perfect
Yeah,
grass, like a
16,
nice stadium.
16. Yeah,
16. Yeah,
yeah,
there you
no.
go. Like that's crazy.
But they put massive amounts of investment into the upkeep of the facilities and things like that. But it pays off, man. Like you
Mhm.
said, Hertha Berlin came and paid a lot of money to use those facilities. So they're doing things right. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then I spoke just a little bit there about the soccer side of things because it's so different to all the other like American sports where the main way to kind of going pro, which is every kid's dream, isn't really getting drafted. Like obviously they have the draft process through MLS, but there's also USL and most players really that are going pro don't really go through the draft process. Um, how does IMG like differ on the soccer side of things? Like, because I know most of their other sports, their kids are just looking for like I would assume they're looking for scholarships to get into a good university and then move on from there. Is the soccer side different? I imagine it would be because of that.
Well, first, I would like to say this is my personal opinion. I don't want to speak on behalf of the
Mm-hmm.
academy and the sports program. I mean, the soccer program, but it's still very much geared towards college. Like
Mm-hmm.
the main goal is for us to get every athlete as a senior into a college. Now, there are players that don't want to go to college and go straight pro, but
That's what I was asking. Yeah.
the majority of players are looking to earn a scholarship in a D1, D2, D3 school. Um, so so to answer that part of the question, it's still very oriented like the rest of the academy towards the college. Now, the soccer pathway in the United States has changed over the past 5 to 6 years. Back when I was at IMG, it was college then pro, and the amount of leagues was minimal. The NASL only had 8 teams, and then there was the MLS, and the MLS wasn't even as big as it is now. So college was very important. But now I'm starting to see a lot more kids explore different pathways, because now you have the USL League One, you have the USL championship. You have USL League 2 over the summers. You have UPSL, which is a semi-pro league that IMG actually now has a UPSL team. And you have MLS Next Pro. You have, which is basically the reserve league for the MLS. So these pathways are creating more opportunities for players that want to go straight pro, to skip the college part. I have not seen too many players take that route from ING, but I can only expect it to increase as more opportunities and more soccer becomes available in the US.
Yeah, I think it's something that's now starting to change, and people are realizing, look, you can go to college now, but there's still the option to, if you have the chance, go pro, and then you can always go back. Yes, it limits you in certain systems where you might not be able to get a scholarship or things like that. But I think they're starting to see, because in Europe it's just you go pro. Like there's not really any college route, which I think is cool about the US, is that someone like you, where you wanted to make that jump to go pro, you still got that college degree, and now you've gone into coaching, and you have a good route still ahead of you. Where I think in Europe I spoke a little bit about it with Jack, one of my first few episodes. He's from the UK, and he was saying, like, there really is no other route. Like you strive to go pro, and then some players realize, I'm not making it, and you kind of just get stuck in this bubble where there's no options to go anywhere, and I think that can be dangerous. But I think the US has done well with kind of giving both pathways a chance for every player.
Yeah, no, and if I could give one piece of advice to players that are looking to go pro, is to take that alternative route, because college, I'm not going to speak to all of college soccer, but college is a short season, and there's a lot of distractions in college, and I was a victim of that. And it's not the ideal environment to go pro. And if you are going to go through college soccer, it's like a very, very blinders on, like, all soccer decision if your goal is to go pro, because you have to find a program that is fully committed to helping you do that, a high training environment, a coach that cares about you, and you have to just dedicate to soccer regardless of being in a college environment. It's education and soccer, because as I said, college life is different than the life of going to a MLS Next Pro, where it's literally you train every morning and it's all soccer.
No, 100%. I agree. When I talk with players, I always say you have to be really careful. Like, you got to know what your dreams are, and if they are to go pro, you have to be fully focused, because college really is all about, it's about finding your pathway, I think, in a big way. But that comes with a lot of distractions. You really have to make sure what you want and stick with that. Let's get into some questions. I kind of like asking these questions. I say always, almost for myself. I find it an interesting learning experience when I ask. But what were some of the big challenges that you had throughout your playing career, but just in general in life, that might have changed that pathway for you? Like, in terms of not going pro, you mentioned a little bit about the distractions in college. But yeah, do you look back at any, like, major challenges you had that kind of shifted things in your life in terms of soccer, but also just in general?
Yeah, no, I'm being very open and transparent. I just, like, myself, I think a challenge I had is I thought, I had a closed mind for a while. I thought I was better than I was, and I wasn't willing to listen to criticism from my coaches, from my teammates. And I think, having a more open mind in my development years of 14, 15, 16, it would have helped me, and having that willingness to play other positions, or willingness to, be on the field no matter what team you're on. Because here's one thing that's common spread in the US right now, that is important for players to know, that is, everybody cares about status. Everybody cares about, oh, I play MLS Next, I play ECNL, I play D1, I want to go D1, I got a scholarship, blah blah. Is that how it sounds? It's cooler than what it really is. Because, okay, let's say that you do make an MLS next team, but you're the 15th, 16th player in the roster, and you play. Their club is putting pressure on the coach to make the playoffs, and you play 20 minutes per game. When in the second, the third team, and playing in a league that's just slightly lower, and you're playing every minute, it's a more of a chance to develop. So that was a challenge and revelation that I had, and especially as a coach now, seeing some players kind of have that mindset. I 100% there to remind them, be like, hey, this was me. I don't want you to make the same mistake as me. You, doesn't matter the status or the name, you have to play, and you have to be in an environment where you're getting exposed, and you have to make decisions. And if you're playing 20 minutes a game, you're falling behind, man. So
Right.
so that's one thing that it's really important that I want. Like, if it was to take one thing out of this podcast, is for a young player, is like, look, don't worry about the status. Get on the field, get your reps in, and then good things will come from there. Just as long as you give it your best, you know.
Yeah, I think it's important in life to kind of look back and learn from things that you did and help others, but especially as a coach, I think that's a no-brainer. You had your whole playing career, you had things that you think, oh, I should have done this better, I should have done this differently, but at the end of the day, that happened, and now you can teach young players now and say, look, this is what happened to me, this is what you can do differently now to help change that path.
That's it. That's one of the main motivators, intrinsic motivators for me to be a coach, is to, like, I went through this journey of US youth soccer all the way to college, and I made these mistakes. I could have done this different. So at IMG, that draws athletes that are committed and want to shoot high, I want to be there to help them, and be like, whoa, you're going off track. Don't get distracted. Whoa, you're caring too much about this. Give this a shot. Like, so that's why I like being in this environment as well.
No, that's good. And you covered it a little bit there, but do you have any tips or advice for not only players, like you were saying, but also people? Because I know from a very young age, I was probably like 12 or 13 when I realized, look, I probably don't have a good chance of going pro, but I love the game of football and I want to find ways to work within it. Do you have advice for people like that as well, where they might be a player sitting there like, you know what, I love playing the game, but I also want to potentially work as a coach or in the analytical side or somewhere other than just being a player. Do you have advice for players like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm the prime example of it. You know, like, what happened to me after college, af during the pandemic, was just soul searching. What am I passionate about? What do I want to do with my life? And that was soccer. I but I realized that it's not only soccer is not only playing. Like, there's
Hmm.
the sport is growing so much that there's so many different opportunities, and like, coaching is super rewarding, super fulfilling, helping young players develop as humans and as soccer players. So that's a big reason why I decided to stay in the game in the coaching side, and that's an advice that I would give to, if pro doesn't work out, any guy in their 20s watching this, um, explore it as an alternative, because you can help players, shape them to get further than you did, and then that's a really good feeling. And also, if there's something for every different type of personality in the game nowadays. There's, like, the analytics type, if you like numbers, if you um are more of, like, less social and more like math kind of guy, the analytics and helping clubs find players that they can turn for a profit, or that are going to help them win championships, that's a really valuable position. So for those people that love soccer but aren't playing, or don't have that pathway, that there's a lot of things that you can do for soccer clubs, youth or college teams, or pro teams, that are going to provide value as the sport continues to grow.
That was perfect. I hope whoever, if someone is listening that is in that situation, I hope they can learn from that and see, there's so much, and even if you get into the marketing side or the media and kind of becoming an announcer, whatever it is, there's so many options and availables
I'm glad you
for young
touched on
people.
the media side, because not a lot of people know this, but one of the main attractive things for soccer clubs business wise is their fans. So you are Bayern Munich, you have fans from all over the world. If you can capture, and people will have different opinions about this, but
Mm-hmm.
this, for business itself and for the club to be financially successful, those fans provide monetary value, because if you can get their information through fan engagement, through social media following, there are brands and sponsors and partnerships that value that information from the fans, um, and want to expose their brand to them. So soccer clubs have a reach of billions of people, and sponsors and companies are willing to pay a lot of money to have
Yeah.
access to that reach. So talking alternative pathways and talking purely business, like somebody who's studying business but loves soccer, that's something to consider.
Mm.
A strong social media presence that reaches a lot of people, like that is a lot of value to a lot of companies. So if we want to get into the business side of soccer, there's a room for everybody.
Yeah, I think because it's such a large industry, you can go, okay, I love soccer and I love X, Y, or Z. What and you can name it, and I'm sure you can find a match for something that's available for you.
Yeah, that's it. And it's grown so much in the past few years. It's other sports are taking a downturn.
Mhm.
Soccer is just more and more people are getting into it, and the US is just starting. The amount of soccer fans in the US is like growing, not like this, but more like exponentially
Yeah,
like
just a
this.
straight.
That, I mean, the future, I would say, even though Europe has the highest caliber of soccer, the future is in like the US, Australia, like Japan, like these high population, under the radar nations are going to carry the sport forward, in my opinion. There's a lot of opportunities. So for whoever's listening, think about that.
No, I like that. And then the last one we have here for kind of this section of questions. If we sat down and had this conversation in 5 to 10 years, where do you think you'd be? Like I always ask it because some people have the mindset where you kind of look ahead and have goals and aspirations like, oh, I can see myself here or doing this. Do you have that mindset, or are you more just like focused on today and we'll see what happens?
This was the hardest question on your list, man. Because it almost forces you to like really just like self reflect and like
Yeah.
get deep. Like, yeah, I'm like, Chad, bro, what are you doing? Nah, but I think in 10 years, um, I narrowed it down to three. I'll either
Mm,
be a high level coach in a professional academy or in a professional environment. Um, I'll either have taken another route with uh, the analytics or business side of soccer,
mm,
um, or I'll be living in Spain and doing something soccer related in Spain, because my wife is Spanish. I love Spain, and I would be 100% happy to go over there and do something in La Liga, or for a club over there. So
right.
something like that.
We spoke a little bit about it in the past, and I wanted to get it in just before we get into our last kind of quick fire questions. But you took a team to Spain, I believe, one of your IMG teams. What
Yeah.
was
So
that experience like? Just before we get into the next thing.
no, man, it's life changing, in many different ways, because first of all, as a 25-year-old, to take care of 14 kids, that's the amount of kids that went, and be responsible for their lives in another country was a big growth experience for me. But also seeing them like play against teams from Ireland, a team from Japan, and just having them experience that and guiding them through that, they love that. That was really cool for them. And just even one thing that differs in Europe than in the US is the soccer locker room culture over there. Like literally pitch you go to, there's a locker room. So them experiencing going into the locker room, changing into their cleats, like having that locker room time, that was a point of growth for them. Seeing different cities and going to a Barcelona game, that was awesome. IMG offers it every year. They offer different destinations for different ages and different programs. So we have the MLS Next program. They went to Germany. They're the boys premier program, which is where most of the international students are, or the second or third teams. They went to England. The girls went to Germany as well, and then the U13 and U14s went to Spain with me. So I believe travel is massive piece of soccer, and it's important for everybody to go abroad and play once. You know?
Yeah, you touched on it. Like when I did the 5-month trip, like I did 18 countries or whatever, and seeing, like, I watched at least one youth game or a professional game in almost every country I went to, and seeing the differences in how the players act, how they actually play, the environment around it, the culture. Like, it is so, even in a continent where it feels like every country is like right on top of each other, like it is so different when you just, even city to city, like it is insane how it changes, and it's so like mind opening. Like now coming back and working in the soccer industry, like it's really cool to have that experience and then come back and kind of keep going on with my day to day.
One thing that's crazy that you just reminded me of is how different soccer is felt like in here over in Europe than in the US. Because in the US it's recreational, it's a hobby, it's like entertainment. Over there it's life. Like when I go to San Sebastian and I go watch Real Sociedad play, like the whole town stops and their life revolves around that team, because that team represents them and their community, and all the players were, like, for example, the school teachers of the town, the players, they taught them. So it's like, you represent all of us, and we would die for you. So we love going to the stadium and making noise for you. And that's something that is kind of missing here. Here it's more entertainment. Over there it's like a way of life, and people freaking it. I can't even describe it, man. It's just all passion in here. It's if anyone wants to really know how it feels, just watch the Newcastle versus PSG pregame. And dude, that is proper football. That is life and soccer, like this.
Have you seen, talking about the game, have you seen I just saw like a highlight clip of every time they kick the ball
Bro,
out of bounds, the whole crowd just erupts like every
man.
single time.
Like literally goosebumps from just that bit. That literally just that tackle, and everybody's like, "Come on!"
Yeah.
I showed that video to my boys yesterday. We had a game, and unfortunately we lost. Sometimes the other team's just very talented and better than you, but they they were fired up from that video. You tackle, and the whole stadium, like the players go like this, the whole stadium's like, "Go!" It's unbelievable, man. That, like, I wish I was there at that stadium.
And then you mentioned your connection to Spain through your wife. What's the connection to Real Sociedad? Because I know one of the first posts I commented on yours was like you had done a full report on Real Sociedad and kind of the players coming through their system. Where did that connection start?
So the connection to Spain is through Paula, my wife, but also my entire family comes from Spanish background as well. So It was just a perfect match. But it comes from the first time I went to watch Real Sociedad, and the reason why she loves Real Sociedad and I like it now too is because her dad was the president of the club. So like she grew up in their youth academy in the youth girls academy. She grew up literally going to every single game, and just like Real Sociedad was a strong part of her life, not like a small part where, oh well, let's just go watch the game. It was like like the club basically kept her alive. So like it's rooted in here, and it makes the connection strong there. And once I went there, I saw what it was all about, and I fell in love with the club as well. So I support them now. and that's like my favorite team. And they lost to Atletico today, but they're very talented, you know. And for being a lower budget club in not super low budget, but not being Barcelona or
Lower
Atletico
compared
or
to, yeah.
exactly, they've done unbelievably well in the past 3-4 years, and they're killing it in the Champions League, first in the group. So hopefully it continues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. So that kind of gets into my next question, because we've kind of spoken on like the analytics side and kind of scouting. Do you have a player or a few players in mind that are either under the radar or just someone you want to bring to light that you either love watching or whatever the situation is? Do you have one of those?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I prepared for that question with one player.
Perfect.
He doesn't play for a small club. But he is under the radar. Like, not enough people talk about him. He plays for Atletico Madrid, and his name is Samuel Lino. Samuel Lino. He played for Valencia last year, and he was on loan. And what the stat that caught my eye when I was doing my analytics research is that he is involved. He has the most goal creating actions per 90, like top 5 in La Liga for 2 years straight. That, and a goal creating action differs from an assist, because an assist is literally the pass
The
before the goal.
final, yeah.
But a goal creating action could be a foul that led to a free kick that led to a goal, or a penetrating pass that led to an assist, like a hockey assist, you know. So
Mhm.
a cross that the defender headed and then the guy put it in. Like, Samuel Lino creates so many goals,
Wow.
and let me check how old
Yeah,
is he.
yeah. Have a look. I've
Samuel
never heard of
Lino.
him, so that shows, because I feel like I do a decent amount of research.
Samuel Lino is 23 years old, and he plays for Atletico, and he doesn't come up the field off the field for them, and he's Brazilian, so expect like his name to be flying around the transfer market once his contract is over at Atletico. Like, I could see him going in the Premier League. He has a lot of value, um, because he's so young, and he's a left winger, and if he keeps going the way he's going, just creating goals for his team, you're gonna see like big clubs go after him.
No, that's a good name. I'm glad you brought that up. And then I just wanted to get your opinion. Recently, I've been kind of researching Guirassy. I think his name is how you say it. The Stuttgart striker. He's obviously, I think he's
Yeah,
at 13 goals in 7 games this season. Like, completely out of nowhere. Played for Stade Rennais, like, so a few decent clubs, but like never did anything near the level he's at now. Like, what are your thoughts on him?
I love those stories, man. Like,
Mhm.
players that come out of the blue and start killing it. Uh, the only thing that is with him, he is 28,
Yeah,
so
he's older.
he's riding his peak, and I think for him, like, the value he's adding to Stuttgart is going to help them so much. But for example, I don't see him going for a massive transfer fee,
Right.
or like being a super promising, like, for the next 10 years. But in his prime, doing the things he's doing, he could end up getting a bigger contract with the club, or getting signed by one of the top three biggest clubs in Germany or something like
Right.
that. I could definitely see that, because look at Kane. Like, Kane, he's not young, but he just got signed for Bayern. So that, like, for a player like that, it's great that he's reaching his peak and peak performing at the peak age, which is 28 for soccer players. You know.
I feel like Dortmund always loves those strikers, the ones that just grind it out for some of those bottom or mid-table clubs in Bundesliga, and then like 28, 29, like Modeste went there, a few others. I think that's like kind of the profile they look for.
And Dortmund is awesome. Like, if Dortmund signs an 18-year-old or signs somebody young, keep that name, like, write that
Yeah.
name down and keep it, because they know what they're doing. And same thing with the Red Bull setup. The For
Yeah.
example, Salzburg is the direct feeder into Leipzig. Um, and whoever is killing it for Salzburg, just keep his name in mind, because they do, like, they have it up here. You know,
I
they do a lot
remember
of research.
they first kind of came on my spotlight. Like, you see them here and there, but I never really take notice. But when they played Liverpool, it would have been 2017 or 2018, I think, and it was the Holland Minamino man, that team was just filled with
Yeah,
talent.
man.
And like, and then by the next season, they had all gone on to their next clubs. Like half the team had gone. I think Brendan Aronson was a part of that team as well, or he was maybe just moving at that point. But like, what a class setup! And then, yeah, the next year they obviously all went on to do amazing things.
Yeah, Red Bulls are a good setup, man. And they I think they prioritize some of their clubs more than others, especially the European clubs.
Mhm.
But if a player is young and is doing well for a Red Bulls team, it's because they knew that was going to happen. Like they put in a lot of research into their decisions. So keep an eye on those Red Bulls young guys.
Definitely. So we're let's get into some of the quick fire questions. So we nailed the rising star. We already went through kind of where do you think Real Sociedad will finish this year? That was the second part of that question.
I
Because
think
they're having a pretty good season, right? I keep a little bit of a watch to them.
they started off tying against bad teams, which may come back and bite them. I'm going to say 6th or 7th because they have the Champions League to deal with, and their depth is not as strong. So that amount of games is going to take a toll on them. I hope nobody gets injured, but it always happens.
Yeah.
So I could see it hurting them, just the overload of games and having them finish like 6th or 7th in the Liga. Yeah.
No, I think that's fair. And then do you have a favorite quote or saying? Or like a statement that you live by? I know everyone kind of has their own.
Yeah, let me. I pulled it out just for the podcast. Let me just turn my Kindle on.
No worries.
One sec. It's from a book. I could tell you my favorite book while we.
Because that's one of the next questions. That's what I was just going to get into. So you're obviously a reader then.
Yes, I love reading. Reading is one of my biggest hobbies, and the book that I just read is called Legacy: What the All Blacks Can Teach Us About Life and Business, and it's basically about the All Blacks and rugby team in New Zealand and how they've had from the beginning of their history in 1905 they have an 86% win rate. So if they played 100,000 games. If they played 100,000 games, they've won 86,000. So it talks about the culture and it's really not about rugby, but it's about like the environment and the culture you create translates to the field. And so, a quote that I really liked from here was that it says, "From listening comes knowledge. From knowledge comes understanding. From understanding comes wisdom. From wisdom comes well-being." That's one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And then one more that I really liked in this book was that the first stage of learning is silence. The second stage is listening. So, it talks about being humble and really just being a sponge and absorbing as much knowledge as you can and having an open mindset, which is it resonated with me because it's one of the things that I struggled as a teenager to have. So now I'm all about it,
Yeah. No, I hear that one a lot. Like just the power behind listening, and not speaking in certain rooms. And it's part of the motivation to me starting the podcast where I'm speaking a little bit and asking questions, but the main thing is it's almost selfish for me. I always say this because I'm the one learning the most, I find, from my own podcast because I'm bringing people on that I want to learn from and I want to get to know. And I think it's powerful. I get to sit here for an hour with all these incredible people like yourself, and I just get to listen and learn from people that have done things either that I aspire to be or kind of just have that extra experience ahead of me, and I think it's a really, really powerful thing.
How old are you, Chad?
20.
Like that, it's perfect for you to do this because not only are you going to build connections, but you're also going to learn so much. So it's a genius idea that you're doing this, and I hope my biggest piece of advice for you would be to not lose motivation in it. Like stick with it for years, man. And the more and more people are going to come in it, and if you don't get views at first, like don't worry, it'll come. But stick with it, and it's going to propel your career like high.
I appreciate that. My goal when I first sat down and I was kind of discussing it with my father, and we said 100 episodes. So that's my goal. To when I hit 100 episodes, then I can kind of reevaluate. But I don't want to stop before 100 episodes, because then I'll feel that I've given up. If I hit 100 episodes, then I'll feel okay. Now I can see where to go next, or if I continue. But then at this rate, so I do one a week now, just based on my time schedule. But I think I can go to kind of 2, maybe 3 a week. I think 2 a week's kind of the sweet spot. But then that's so 52 weeks in a year, so it'll be quite a good amount of time. But I think it's important, and I think it's working well for what I want it to be, and I enjoy doing it. So there's definitely not stopping for a little while.
100 episodes is 100 people, man. 100 people added to your address book, so that's a good thing.
Exactly. All right, let's get into some more questions here to wrap up. Top recommendations. Where do you actually live in Florida? Is it St. Pete's? Because I know IMG is kind of
Sarasota.
Like, oh, okay, you live in Sarasota. What's your top recommendations for the area? That's always one of my favorites.
Oof. Okay, so
you can go, like, I'm a big foodie. So if you're a foodie, maybe start with the best food spots.
So in Sarasota, where I live, best food spot for seafood, it's called Duval's. Duval's is really, really good. They have a killer clam chowder, killer mussels. Any fish they serve is so good. So Duval's, that's the best place. For breakfast, and kind of like brunch.
Mm-hmm.
Paul and I love acai bowls and juice and things like that. It's called Summer Juice Tap, and it's here in Sarasota, and it has the best just juices, fruits. Like, it's the best thing ever. And then in St. Pete, for a restaurant for dinner over there that I am willing to drive an hour for, because it's so good. It's Italian. It's called PS Trattoria. That's anything you over there. It's incredibly good. So if you're in St. Pete, go to PS Trattoria.
All right. So when I'm back down, then I'll have to try some out. Definitely the seafood spot. I forget. I went somewhere for seafood, but it wasn't that great. So I'll have to try that one that you recommended. So we went through favorite book. Oh, do you have favorite hobbies outside of soccer? Like, I know I laugh about this with a lot of my guests, because soccer, I find, is my hobby, so it becomes my whole life, whether I'm filming a podcast or playing FIFA or chatting about it with my friends. Do you have anything else to kind of get your mind out of soccer, or is it just kind of purely soccer?
Bro, it is hard, man, because, like, I think only people in the soccer industry will understand how consuming and life involving it is. Like, soccer is my life. Like, everything revolves around it. My livelihood, like my paycheck, my freaking time on the couch,
especially for you.
Everything is soccer. So, but it is good to take a break every once in a while, like, just for mental health and things like that. So I really like going on walks. It's like, I have to do it once a day. At work, I just go get a coffee at the IMG hotel, because it's just therapeutic for me. Reading, and then, sometimes when I'm sitting on the couch, I'll just be thinking about my team and work and things like that, and soccer and tactics. So one thing that gets me off of the soccer mindset is Netflix shows. And I like watching Spanish Netflix shows, because it makes me feel like I am in Spain. So I like that. Yeah.
I find I'll be like, okay, I'm done watching soccer for the day. I've done working, and then I'll put on, like, the David Beckham show that's on Netflix. Like, my life is just fully soccer. There's just no going.
You'll start scrolling through Twitter or something, and it's all soccer as well. So you're like, I can't escape it.
Yeah, no, but it's good. I love it. Okay, and then this is a new one. It's actually the first time I'm going to ask it, but I heard it on another podcast. I think it's a sports business podcast. Can't think of the name. But if you could sit down with one person for a meal, dead or alive, who would it be? So this could just be like an interesting person, or like an idol, or maybe someone that you looked up to. It could be really anyone.
It's soccer related, but I think Jose Mourinho, I mentioned him earlier. He has such a knowledge of the game, and like such ability to see people, such ability to see the future, such ability to see trends, that I wouldn't only ask him questions about soccer, but just like what he uses to read people, or what he uses to see where things are going. Because he predicted, he knew, man, he knew that Arsenal was going to take off like 3 years ago, and he knew that Manchester United was going to be a mess, and like he knows things that most people find out like 4 or 5 years later. And I want to know what it is that he does, or how he comes to those conclusions, and what his methods are. He's massive to the development of coaching, to Portuguese football. He created a whole coaching philosophy, wrote books on periodization. Like, the guy's a genius. He's a genius in our industry, and I would really love to sit with him, and just like get into his mind. If you can get him in your podcast, Chad, I will like come.
I'll get you to co-host to translate for me. Although he can speak English, so he's good. Yeah. I like that. That's a good one. When I was in Porto, obviously he had that incredible run with them, and like their museum there is purely just all about him, because he obviously was probably the greatest manager they've ever had, and he completely changed their club. But just the run, and they kind of had some documentaries around him and stuff, like, just incredible. And I think he's almost one of those genius level people, almost like an Elon Musk, where he's kind of like weird, like he's weirdly genius. Like, I think it would almost be difficult to have a conversation with him, because his head is just so much more into like a complex universe of like, this is how soccer works. But yeah, definitely. And just an entertaining person. Like, everywhere he goes, he knows how to bring the media around him. Like, he's got a little bit of everything.
Those quotes he'd made to like have the media write headlines and stuff, they weren't naive. Like, he knew exactly what he was doing every time. It was it's crazy. He's, like you said, a genius.
Yeah, no, that's good. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you. Do you have anything you want to shout out before you go? Any projects, social media, anything like that? I know most people don't really have anything, but in case you do.
No, man, but I would like to come back on this podcast at some point in the future, and just like as for example, if I move somewhere else, or if something new happens, I'll let you know. And I like to share, because I think podcasts provide value, even for a guy that didn't make it pro, and just wants to offer a different perspective. So I think you're doing great things, and like I will recommend your podcast to a lot of people, because it brings different perspectives that are really good.
I really appreciate that. I think it's one of the cool things that I'm going to get from it is having all these guests on now, including yourself. I think it'll be cool to see, like, one of the questions in 5 to 10 years, like, having those people back on and sharing that story of kind of the time in between, I think will be really powerful. And yeah, I love doing this, and yeah, we'll see where it goes. But I appreciate you coming on, and yeah, we'll keep in touch. And when I'm back down in Florida, we'll grab some coffee or something.
For sure, man. For sure. Let me know. Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time today, man.
Of course. Likewise. Have a good one.